Well, this sure dropped out of freaking nowhere. Yeah, I can't even believe this just suddenly shadow dropped on everybody. This is actually the second time that we saw something with Fox that was just shadow dropped, just like the Mario Galaxy movie. So I do find that kind of funny. And yesterday it was pretty exciting, of course, seeing all of the announcements in the direct. I actually only caught like the tail end of it, kinda. So I saw the new designs before I was properly introduced to them, and it was kind of jarring at first because I just didn't understand what if I was. I got it kind of mixed up because the style at first, from my impression of the gameplay, I seriously thought I was looking at one of the fan games that someone had made for it, called Star Fox Event Horizon. I almost thought I was looking at footage of that because I've seen a little bit of that before. But when I landed on a Nintendo Direct that was streaming it, for a small moment, I literally almost thought they gave these guys the green light to make it. Like I almost had a moment like that, but then I saw that it was completely different, and I was just really shocked that this dropped on us out of nowhere and that it was very stylistically different and that it was modeled, of course, well, the whole game is basically Star Fox 64. And yeah, I know we've gotten so many of those over the years. Well, not so many, but just kind of just the fact that Star Fox 64 itself is a remake of the original Star Fox. Though I do feel that they were really clever with the way they created Star Fox 64, because growing up I actually thought it was a sequel to the original instead of a remake. So I always kind of saw it that way for a long time before I learned it was actually just kind of a reboot of the series. Before eventually we got the 3DS port, and then of course Star Fox Zero was the first or second major reboot. And now here we have yet another one with the Switch 2 Star Fox game coming out. So I'm pretty excited for it. I actually don't have a Switch 2 though. I'm still on the fence about it personally. I always feel on the fence about any new consoles that come out because I wait to see if it has enough games in the library that really interest me enough to justify getting a whole console, especially with how expensive a lot of these consoles can be. I do feel like they've maybe eased up a little bit on the price over time, maybe. At least I've heard something about it. I haven't actually checked for myself, though. But I don't feel I've reached that point just yet where I've tipped over to justifying getting a Switch 2 in my mind just yet. But I do feel that something like Star Fox really does help with that. So I definitely would get this game if I had a Switch 2, but I'm not really there yet, personally. But as for the style, I know the style has divided a lot of people. And personally, I think it's very interesting. I did, honestly, for a while, I found it kind of funny, not like in a mocking tone, but just out of the shock of the fact that we were getting a Nintendo Direct, focused on Star Fox exclusively, and that it dropped out of nowhere. And even before I could fully process that, I didn't realize it was actually being streamed live at that moment. Well, actually, before that, I missed a good chunk of it, as I said, and so it was just a lot to take in so soon between a Star Fox Direct and then the fact that it even looks like this stylistically. So it really caught me off guard, and it just took time to really process. But for somebody like myself, who goes all the way back to the original Star Fox that came out in the early mid-90s, and I don't say this because, it makes my view of it more valid or anything, but just out of perspective from the original, my memories of the first Star Fox, I remember watching my brother play and beat the Super Nintendo game, and as a kid, well, actually as a toddler, I remember looking at the box art and looking through the manual and seeing the puppets, the style they went for with the presentation. And I remember as a kid always being kind of like mesmerized by the puppets. I didn't know they were actually puppets, but I did look at it wondering, like, how did they get it to look so real? Because I'm so used to the other games, like I know later Super Metroid would come out, but then there were games like Super Mario World before it, and certain others where it was clearly an art style of some kind. But then here suddenly we have Star Fox, and then we have these puppets that look realistic. And so that always kind of fascinated me at a young age. One of the other memories I wanted to share in my experience with Star Fox 64, of course, is when we first got the console back in the day. I remember our parents actually brought it home from Toys R Us. It was a Toys R Us exclusive console, which came with the gold controller, and they brought it home with Star Fox 64. I don't remember if there was any special occasion connected to it, or if maybe some of my siblings talked them into getting it, but all I know is I was at home and they suddenly brought home a new console with Star Fox 64, and I first watched my brother play through it, and it was really cool to see what a huge upgrade it was from the original game, of course, with the polygons on the Super Nintendo, and of course all the recorded voice lines and everything that went into making it look really pretty at the time. But yeah, I remember it being a very special experience, and I remember just feeling like it was so much more immersive than the original game. So I do have a lot of memories connected to it. I feel like concerning Star Fox as a series, there are so many different ideas for what Nintendo could do with it. I feel it always had a lot of potential. And I do feel like one of my hot takes, at least concerning one idea, because I have many ideas for something like Star Fox, but one idea I do remember having for a while, and I still hold to it even now. I felt like the style of the puppets, I honestly felt like for as much as I want to move on from the Lylat Wars, which is the Star Fox 64 story, I am with everybody else in wanting to move on from the story and get something like a true sequel and then see what goes after that, you know? But I do feel that it makes sense that they retread in this case, because it is getting a lot of exposure these days, especially with the new Mario movie and Fox being featured there, so it does make sense to me. But concerning any kind of concept of a reboot in general, I do remember my idea being like, what if they went for that puppet style? What if they actually did try to make something that was kind of realistic in that way, but still kind of had that Star Fox branding to it? So I actually feel very open to this interpretation, and actually the fact that it is a Star Fox 64 reboot yet again, or really even just the original Star Fox story, however you want to phrase it, I do feel more open to it this time, just because they gave it such a huge stylistic overhaul. I feel like that was a very bold move on their part to just do that, because I feel like we've had kind of the different proportions for the characters, kind of the puppet style. I feel like this a more animalistic look, I can understand why it would be jarring to a lot of people, and I felt like there was a part of me kind of thinking about it. I didn't feel like I was against it, but I was kind of like adjusting a little bit just watching it. But I do feel like I just really admire the boldness to actually make it happen and to just suddenly shadow drop it on us like this. I do kind of wish that I had thought ahead of time about streaming. That was the other thing, is when this dropped, I think just the shock of all of it just kind of sent me down this whole tangent of seeing what everybody was saying about it. But it took me like several hours before I even realized, like, oh yeah, I should have made my own video about this too. But I was just kind of lost in the hype surrounding this game. But yeah, it seems like I was 2 years early in predicting a Star Fox game, because I remember, I think at the end of 2023, I tried to make a prediction that 2024 was going to be the year of Star Fox, which didn't come true, and I'm not surprised, but it was just a random prediction I wanted to make just for fun. But so here we are suddenly 2 years later, after the fact, and it seems this year is going to be the year of Star Fox and its revival. So I'm very happy to see that. I really enjoyed the Mario movie, by the way, and it was really cool to see Fox appear in that movie. That was out of nowhere. That was like a huge shock of its own as well, when that was suddenly announced shortly before the film hit theaters. But yeah, I really enjoyed watching that, and this just dropped out of nowhere. I'm still kind of processing that it's even real, just looking at the screenshots, the footage that is available. There's some exclusive footage outside of the direct, I think, that were posted on the Japanese website, I think. I've seen some of it posted around the place, but yeah. So I actually am very open to this change, and I do think it looks really cool. Really don't know what else to add besides just admiring that the style is so different, and I feel like that's kind of what makes me more open to the idea of a reboot, even though I want to move on with the story, just like a lot of other people. I think it's really interesting, and I think it will open the door eventually to true sequels. I almost kind of wondered if maybe Nintendo would do that with Zero. Maybe they'd get like a Switch port, or if not, maybe they just make a direct sequel and just make that the new Switch game. I would have been open to that too. But I feel like this does make sense, and I certainly appreciate it as a longtime Star Fox fan. I feel like just concerning a lot of these properties, growing up, a lot of my favorite franchises were, of course, Contra, Mega Man, and I feel like Star Fox has always been one of the big ones as well. So for me, this is very exciting news, and I'm very much open to the interpretation. The other thing about just how experimental they are getting, I mean, I guess it's not too experimental in the sense that it is still a traditional Star Fox title, but just that they were willing to try something different stylistically, it kind of reminds me of the GameCube era of Nintendo and how they gave us games that were very kind of wild card, different entries for the series, or even just all new franchises. Like Luigi's Mansion was just so different for a launch title. And then getting something like Star Fox Adventures was wildly different, which was like a Zelda style game for the Star Fox franchise, even though at the time I didn't know it was based on Dinosaur Planet. But as a kid, to me, it seemed like an experimental effort, and I was very open to it because I just loved anything and everything Star Fox. So I really appreciated it, even if it was very different. And then you had stuff like Metroid Prime, which was a very different take on Metroid altogether, by turning it into a first-person perspective action-adventure experience. But yeah, I just kind of feel like it's like a throwback to me in a way. So this is a path I've been down before, and it's actually, I just really admire that they're willing to try something new. For me, that just is like a breath of fresh air that kind of takes me back to that era. And it doesn't surprise me that there would be detractors, and that's perfectly fine if, not everybody likes it. That's kind of to be expected, especially with something like Star Fox. I feel like there's kind of the old school on rails style, and then there are those who are sort of a GameCube era in a way, I suppose you could say. But for myself, I've always appreciated the franchise. I will say that Star Fox Zero is a game that I missed out on only because I never did justify getting a Wii U. I just never really tipped over, even though it's kind of funny and ironic because I felt like the Wii U probably is an underrated console, even though I wasn't really sold on it. I did think it had some cool games available to it, but I just never really tipped on trying to actually get one for myself. So I felt like it was underrated in a way, but it's ironic saying that because I can't truly say that from the experience of playing it. But I know there are plenty of people who did play and enjoy it, and I admired it from a distance, pretty much. Like I liked watching other people play these games on a system I didn't have. But if I did have a Wii U, I definitely would have gotten Star Fox Zero. But it was just a console that I wasn't really interested in getting for myself. I never really was sold on it. So that was really the only reason why I missed the ship on getting that game. So that's pretty much my overall outlook on this new Star Fox. I'm very happy that we're finally getting something for it, and I'm certainly curious to see what else comes out from it. I do think the idea of the webcam is really funny. I think that's maybe one of my favorite I don't think it's the best feature. I don't think it's the most amazing thing, but I think it's just one of the funniest ideas that I just really would like to see people have fun with. And the fact that you could have these team-based matches between Star Fox and Star Wolf is just really cool to me. There's a part of me that wonders also just how far they might take it with multiplayer. I wonder if it will also have unlockables, kind of like Star Fox 64, because it had a secret on-foot mode for the multiplayer. I wonder if they would do that here or if they'd ignore it. I feel like it wouldn't be surprising if they ignored it and just kind of left it as it is with what they showed us. But I'm open to surprises if they do have anything like that tucked away in the game. I think that'd be really interesting to see in action. I just wanted to share a little bit about how I feel of the new Star Fox. I think it looks really cool. I would definitely get it if I ever get a Switch 2 someday. I'm still kind of waiting for something to really tip the scale and convincing me to get one. I do find it a little bit daunting just for the price, not just of the console, but the games as well. So that is one of the other factors, but I don't doubt that maybe someday I'll be convinced, and yeah, I'd be willing to give it a shot someday. But until then, that's pretty much all I have to say about this game. I'm excited to see anything else that comes out about it, and I'll see you guys later. Take care.